सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणेन मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। Okay, so let us chant. Let us chant verses number 15, 16, and 17, just 3 verses. Number 15 of the 5th chapter, 15, 16, and 17. So, nadatte kasyachit papam. Nadatte kasyachit papam. न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानं येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषाम् आदित्यवत् ज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम् तद्बुद्ध्यस्तदात्मानः तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिम् ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः। Okay. So in the previous verse that we had covered in the last class 2 weeks ago was number 14. So there, if you recall, na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu na karma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. So there the operative word was Prabhu. And interestingly enough, in the commentaries by the two people that I had studied recently, Swami Paramarthananda had taken Prabhu to be the Jivatma. Jivatma. And you can do both, really. And Swami Maheshanandji had taken Paramatma, not Jivatma, as the meaning of the Prabhu. And both are applicable. You can have commentaries on both aspects of it. And what the verse number 14, regardless of which one you take, what is said in number 14 is that the sense of doership and enjoyership is really false. Even though, if you look at our lives, what happens is that fundamental to our lives is myself as a personality. Myself as a personality, as a jiva. I am the one who's doing things, and I'm reaping the rewards of it or the punishment of it. This is what happens. They say that, really speaking, all health problems that we have is due to our own previous karma. Kind of foods that we took, and sometimes unknowingly. I remember being vegetarian. I didn't know what to eat here, my wife and I, when we were living for a number of years. And when I turned vegetarians, really other than the Indian food, the pasta was the only thing that we would eat. Pasta this, pasta that, and so on. And we did not realize how harmful it is to really base your diet on pasta, which is all carbohydrates. Ultimately, I had a heart problem and a heart attack, and I had a bypass. All of that happened. And only now, not now, but about 20 years ago, we realized that really carbs is very harmful. It's not something that you should do. And so, knowingly or unknowingly, you create your own health problems. But regardless of that, what happens is you feel that I am responsible for my health. I have to do things. I am responsible for saving money, investing properly, and running out of money, having all of the problems of running out of all those kinds of things. So this is what is called kartritva. Kartritva means doership. And kartritva means also bhoktritva. Bhoktritva means the sense of enjoyment or suffering. So there is a certain sense about doership and enjoyership that reinforces my basic understanding that I am a human being. So the definition of a human being includes the sense of kartritvam and bhoktritvam. So this is normal. This is normal. Gita says, even though it appears to be normal, the fact of the matter is that your fundamental reality is you are not a human being. You're not a human being. A human being is just an outside personality that you have. Your reality is you're something bigger than that. And you have to discover that. You have to understand that. It is just due to your non-understanding that you think you're a human being or anyone is a being. It's not non-understanding. And in fact, I think we should always keep this. This is a very important and a very, very useful way of looking at ourselves. So what happens is, and we will build on this today, I just want to focus in on this aspect of it. So if you really understand the message of our scriptures, what it says is that there is a person and a reflection of that person in your experience. This is exactly how the creation is made. We have to really grasp this very well. The way that the whole creation has come about is through mirrors, is through reflections. And so this is what we have to really understand. This is what is called bimba and pratibimba. So bimba is the person and pratibimba is the reflection of the person. Now, if you follow this analogy, then the person is one, but the reflections are many. And the reflections look like the person, but they are defined by the reflecting surface. So, if you look at your own reflection, your reflection looks almost like you, but not really, because you have, there's a certain falsehood to it. It looks like you doesn't mean that it is you. And in fact, there's a certain falsehood to it because there's a certain beauty to it also, that wow, I have a duplicate, and the duplicate is now defined by the reflecting surface. If the reflecting surface is moving, then you're also moving. Your reflection is also moving. If the reflecting surface is dirty, then your reflection also is not really very clear. That's why Swami Maheshanji had said that if you go to Varanasi, so what happens is that apparently you go to Varanasi, so you go to these pandits on the banks of the Ganga, and they do some pujas to you and this, that, or the other. And apparently part of it is they show you a mirror. So you have to look at yourself in the mirror. Now this mirror that they showed you, he takes it out of his bag. He carries his bag around, whoever wants the puja, and then he lights up a lamp and so on and so forth. And then he takes out this mirror and you say, by the way, look into your mirror. This mirror is 40 years old. And somebody stepped on it and it broke it into two parts. But the poor guy doesn't have money to buy another one, so he uses the same one. And it has got spots on it, and it hardly looks like a mirror. But the poor guy, he says, this is good enough. I've got a frame and so on and so forth. He thinks it is just a symbol anyway. What reflection are you going to see yourself? Swami Maheshanji makes a very beautiful point. He says, if the men want to shave, now for shaving you need a mirror. Pakka. You cannot do a shaving without, because otherwise you'll cut your lips and so on and so forth. So you need a mirror. Now, if you look at yourself in this dirty, broken mirror, your shaving will not be very useful. By the way, this is an important point which I'm going to come to in the next verse or two. So keep this, I'm going to keep this analogy important. Okay? So the point is that the way the creation is done is that there is one bimba and many pratibimbas. Many pratibimbas. One person and many reflections. And the reflections, you cannot say the reflection doesn't look like me, because it does. But the reflection also has now gone through another filtering process of being filtered by the reflecting surface. So it's a combination. If you look at the reflection is a combination of the reflecting surface and the bimba. Isn't it? It has both qualities into it. Okay? Now let us look at and just think about this. So when we say you are not a human being, because people will say, what? What are you talking about? I'm a human being. This is clear. Why are you So when we say you are not a human being, you are something more than that. What we say is, you are not a pratibimba, you are the bimba. There is only one person. There are many reflections, but one person. And there is and there can be only one person. Now, in our experience, there can be many people looking at mirrors. So you cannot say there's only one person, there are many mirrors. Many people looking at the mirrors. Like supposing you go to a gym, then I find in the gym that I go to, which is so interesting. I usually shave early in the morning before I go, but a lot of people shave at the gym. So at one time you'll see 4 or 5 people all shaving at the same time. So there are many people with many reflections. In the broader context, we can prove there must be only one person. That one person is Ishvara, Brahman, only one person. And we will have to prove why that is the case, why there cannot be anything other than that. The whole thing will not make any sense unless you follow this reasoning. There's only one person. But there are many reflections of that person in this whole creation. You and I are those reflections of Ishvara. You and I all look slightly different from each other because it is possible that the same person look differently depending on the reflecting surface. And there are so many reflecting surfaces. In fact, supposing there is a mirror on the wall, and the sun is shining into the room, what will happen is that the walls will not reflect the sun as well as the mirror will. The wall reflects the sun because there's light falling on it. It is the light of the sun. But you cannot see the sun as clearly as in the mirror. So all I'm saying is that the same sun can be very vague in a wall, or it can be very clear. So clear, in fact, that you will burn your eyes if you were to look at the sun in the mirror. So the same sun is now reflected in pools of water, mirrors, walls, and so on. Similarly, the Shastra tells us there is only one Ishvara. And that Ishvara is the consciousness in you. When you say I, that I is that Brahman. But when you say I, you say, I'm going to I'll be coming, I will not be able to come to your class. You get, I guess, very nice messages from people like, sorry Vijayji, I cannot come to the class because I'm traveling. So when that person sends me that email, that is the person as a human being. That human being has kartritvam, bhoktritvam. It is all part and parcel of that. Okay? So now, please see that the kartritvam and bhoktritvam is in the pratibimba. Is in the pratibimba. It is in the human form. In reality, the kartritvam and bhoktritvam is not in the bimba. It is not in the consciousness. Consciousness, the very Atma, the very Brahman, cannot move. It cannot change. Kartritva means the doership means change. Change is possible in the reflection. The reflection can move, but the reality cannot move. So I'll suspend that analysis until a little bit later, but now finish this verse. You can now understand the verse number 14 in terms of this analogy that I drew about the bimba and pratibimba. So let's revisit the number 14. He says, na kartritvam, na karmani, lokasya srijati prabhu, na karma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. He says that the sense of doership, sense of enjoyership, and the connection between what happens, what doesn't happen, all of that, and karma phala samyogam. Karma phala samyogam means that the results are properly distributed based on what you did. So sometimes there is some kind of a common element that happens, like, supposing there is a plane crash. In the plane crash, let's say 100 people died. So, but individually, each person had something coming so that your life will be terminated prematurely, for whatever reason. And so there was individual karma phala samyogam was given to you. Even though it looks like the plane crashed and so a number of people died, you had nothing to do with it. But no, that you had to be on the plane at that time and you perished, you created problems for yourself and for others by leaving in the middle of the life, etc., etc. All those kinds of things are that what is called karma phala samyogam. All the connection between you as a person and the phala that you got. All of that does not touch the Prabhu. Prabhu here means the bimba. And so what it means is this. It has lots of different aspects that we can think about. One is that this in fact is the truth. So Shraddha towards the truth. Because when we read something like this, we say, what? How is that possible? How is that possible that I am a human being? How can I get rid of the sense of this belongs to me, I have to do this? How can I get rid of it? It's not possible. And this is what we have to see, that it is possible. It's possible because what happens is that my viewpoint at this point is through as a jiva. My reality is that I am a human being. I am a moving thing, my mind is working, and so on and so forth. I am responsible for it, what I do, and so on and so forth. This view of myself ignores the fact that I am unchanging, that my Atma is never born, does not move, is unchanging, cannot die. That is not clear to me yet. But the fact of the matter is, that is the bimba, which is my truth. That is not clear, and so as a result, the only thing that is clear is, so what happens is basically, it is not clear that you are the bimba. Essentially, you are the bimba. You are the real person standing in front of the mirror. And you are taking your reflection to be the bimba. In fact, the pratibimba is pratibimba. And bimba is bimba. They are separate things. But because of my ignorance, I am taking the pratibimba to be the bimba. This is the problem. So what happens is that as we become more understanding over time of the reality of this, then I find that yes, there is a certain amount of prarabdha karma. Prarabdha karma means that my body will have hunger. I would need to go to the bathroom to eliminate all the bad things in my, urine and so on and so forth. Yes, all those things will happen. And I will be thirsty. And yes, I have to, but those things are trivial compared to the fact that I am the very basic Atma which doesn't change, which is independent of the human embodiment. That will happen one day. This is the Jivan Mukta stage that will happen. And so from that perspective, there will be no issue at all. So the kartritvam and bhoktritvam will not come to me. That sense of doership, things are happening, I'm flowing with it without any bad effect. So this is being defined for you as a goal and something to aspire to in our life. That is the independence. This is the Jivan Muktitva. So this is being referred to here at this point in time. Okay? And so what it means is that even though, yes, it appears you are moving, it appears you are limited, it appears that you are doing, the aspiration is that at the end of that, it is just an appearance. In fact, Atma doesn't move at all, doesn't need to move. It is never born, it will not die, and all of those kinds of things will become apparent over time. So this is the promise, this is the vision that is laid out by none other than Krishna, the Lord Himself. So to finish it off, na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu na karmaphala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. Svabhava means that it's just the very nature of things that, so it's interesting, if you are looking at your reflection in the mirror, then the reflection will appear like that. It will appear moving. That is the svabhava. There's nothing to be upset about that. You are not moving. Let your reflection move. So what? The problem is I cannot distinguish my reflection from myself. Yes, that is an issue. This is where we have to see. Once you know that you are different from your reflection, there's no problem whatsoever. So this is the trend of the jnanam that is being given in this stage of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, let's cover new ground, but continue with the same general vision. And there are some aspects about this vision which will be very interesting to look at this. So keep the vision of the reflection and the bimba and the pratibimba as we continue with the next couple of verses. So in verse number 15, he says, na adatte kasyachit papam na cha eva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena avritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. So let's look at the English translation of the verse first, and then we will see. So, na vibhuhu, and by the way, the two meanings of vibhuhu are similar to the two meanings of prabhuhu. In the previous verse, the word prabhuhu was used, and here vibhuhu is used. So the two meanings of vibhuhu could be the jivatma or the paramatma. So either could be taken. So here Swami Paramarthananda and Swami Dayanandji also, I think, must have, because the two are very similar in their thinking. He has taken vibhuhu to be the jivatma, the atma. And the same thing can be applied that neither one of them is affected, either the jivatma or the paramatma, because they are the same. Whether you're talking about the room space or the total space, it is the same space. So in that sense, they are very similar. But the way of analysis comes from two different directions. So here, the analysis is given from a jivatma standpoint, and I'll focus in on the paramatma, which in my view is more interesting and more rewarding. And so I'll come to that in a minute, but let's just look at the word meanings. So vibhuhu means the atma, adatte. Adatte means grasps, takes to itself, gets united with it, something like that. Like you say that supposing I hand you some sweets, then you take the sweet, that becomes yours. This is what is called adatte. Na papam na cha eva sukritam. He says that neither the results of previous bad actions or good actions, it does not affect the Atma. This is a good way to look at it. So for example, the sun shines on a pious person and a criminal the same way. The pious person has some sukritam, some punyam coming to him, because he's and a criminal has some papam coming to him. But it doesn't really affect the sun shining on both of them. It's the same. So the Atma, in fact, is not affected by either your personality, which is a good personality, or a bad personality. Doesn't make a difference to it. It simply shines. It's kind of, as we said, the electricity that powers a good appliance or a bad appliance. It is due to the appliance itself that it is functioning well, not because of the electricity. So, Vibhuhu adattena papam nacha eva sukritam kasyachit. He says that this discrimination is veiled, avritam jnanam, by the ignorance, and therefore it feels like I am having the papam. I'm sorry, I did something bad. Now I deserve it. I deserve it. This is the way it happens. And so that's what it is. Or the Paramatma. Now if you look at the Paramatma also is not really, it must belong to someone. So you say, if the kartritvam doesn't belong to me, the papam doesn't belong to me, then who else does it belong to? No, not even the Paramatma and so on and so forth. It cannot affect that also. This is an interesting thing that we need to examine, okay? This particular aspect of it. Right, so let's look at this. It's very well taken up by Swami Maheshananji, so I'm just going to expand on that. This is what I was driving to. Okay. So let us first look at the word Vibhuhu. Vibhu. So as Swami Maheshananji has taken Vibhuhu, as I mentioned before, to be the Paramatma, the Ishvara. So the Vibhuhu means known in different forms. So Vibhuhu means Vividha. Vividha means in different forms. Vividha Bhu, one who is in different forms. So here there was a small commentary here. He says that what happens is that your whole body is you. Hands are also you, your stomach is also you, and so on. But there are portions in your body where the sense of I-ness becomes particularly acute. And those are two primary reasons, two locations in your body. One is your mind, buddhi, and the other one is your heart. So when you say I, you are referring to your buddhi, your functioning in your brain. That's where it is located when you say, yes, I understand. You don't say that my hand understands or my legs understand. But I understand. My thoughts are with you. Yes. Or I don't get it. Something like that. It's all done in your buddhi. So even though the I-ness that you have is distributed throughout your body, because if somebody can say, okay, you are only thinking about it, so let me just borrow your hand and I'm going to leave, Can't say that. Don't touch me. The whole thing is me. All I mean is that my main idea is in my mind, or the other one is your heart. So when you say I love you, that love, the feeling, comes from the inner core of you. You're not going to say that, my thoughts mean that I love you. It doesn't happen. So the core of you is your heart. And not just the physical heart, but something in between which says, this is me. That's my feeling. This is the way I, and so on. Anyway, the reason we're giving here is, there are people who say that, Ishvara is everywhere. Didn't you say that Ishvara is everywhere? Yes, Ishvara is everywhere. The whole thing is nothing but his body. Then why is it that I need to pray to Ishvara in a given form? As Brahmaji, as Shiva, as Ganesha, as Christ, and others. How is it that I have to pray in a particular form? It's exactly the same thing. Even though the Ishvara is everywhere, just like in your case, you also have some particular parts that are very pertinent. Similarly, Ishvara also is known by his personality as something that you should focus in on. This is where his brain and his heart resides. So that's one of the things that is talked about in explaining Vibhu. Now, this verse, separate from the 14, brings up karma phala. So you can say the number 15 was kartritvam, and here it is bhoktritvam. Because papam and sukrita means the results of it. The results also do not apply to the Atma. And doesn't apply to Ishvara also. It's nothing to do with Ishvara. Nothing to do with Brahman. It is something to do with a feeling of I am a human being. As long as you have that feeling I am a human being, then within that feeling, your sense of right and wrong will always come to you. You cannot escape that. Whatever you did in your previous life, etc., will all come to you. But really speaking, that is only in a kind of like a dreamlike state. The fact of the matter is that it doesn't touch you at all. Okay. Now, some commentary on this. So just look at the same analogy which I started with Bimba and Pratibimba. Beautiful explanation by Swami Maheshananji. He said, suppose you are looking at your reflection. And suppose you want to put bindi. So supposing you're a woman and you want to put a bindi on your forehead. Would you put it on the reflection? No. You You just hold yourself steady and you look at yourself in the mirror in a very steady way, and exactly where your forehead is on the mirror, you put the bindi right on the middle of the forehead, and you don't move. For a second, it looks like you are wearing a bindi. But is that the proper thing to do? Because what will happen is, first of all, you are smearing the mirror. Now you have to clean it. Now you have to clean it because now you put something red with the liquid on it. Secondly, it is not right. You are not thinking properly. What you should do is to put the bindi on the bimba that you are. If you put the bindi on the bimba, it will automatically be in the pratibimba also, isn't it? So this is the analogy we should remember. Now look at the application of that in our life. Okay, it's really very good stuff here. I learned a lot from this analogy. What happens is that suppose you do a prayer, or you do something good or bad, and your overall thinking is, I am doing for my own self. Even when you say I'm sorry to someone, you are doing something good. Or supposing you do something bad, your thoughts are not pure, you have a hurtful attitude towards the others, whatever. All of those thoughts and actions are with respect to you as a human being. And the human being, your status of yourself as a human being, as a jiva, as a personality, we already said it is a pratibimba, not a bimba. So my status in life with respect to who I think I am is a pratibimba, it's a reflection. That's not who I am. I'm not a reflection. And to see that, really speaking, how I take myself to be is really a reflection. So follow this. I know it's obtuse, but let me close this because the derivative of that is just enormous. The derivative of it, that is very useful. So when I do a prayer, when I do an action, when I reap the results of that, it is like I am doing it for the reflection. It is like I am putting the bindi on the mirror. This is what happens. I am wasting my time. It's very possible that some two young kids can be joking and say, you want to put a bindi on yourself without even putting a bindi on yourself? Here, let me show it to you. Hold steady, and then you put it there. And they can laugh about it and just have some fun. Do you know this is exactly what we are doing? Because what happens is that what you do to the reflection has nothing to do with what you do to yourself. All the punya and papa and actions and all so on and so forth, we are doing it to the reflection. And it is totally useless and laughable. And so what should I do? If you can't, I don't know what else to do. Because I am, that's all I can understand is that if I were to improve my life, then I have to do prayers and so on and so forth. So look at the importance of this. Let's carry on this thing further. I don't know what else to do. I see myself as a jiva and I can only do things that are pertinent to me. So there it is said, whatever actions you do, offer it to the bimba, not to the pratibimba. Offer it to Ishvara. And don't even have a sense that may Ishvara reward me from my actions. Don't even have that. What you should have, we will talk about in a minute. But let us see what not to do. Why? Because if I keep on doing it as myself as a human being, it is exactly like putting the bindi on the mirror. How stupid that is. So that should be avoided. And what should be done? Any actions that you have should be to the bimba. And what do you mean by that? How do I do that? It is to say that until now, all I did was good deeds. I'm fighting with the battle of good deeds and bad deeds, and nothing has released me from the hold of the karma phalas. Good deeds, bad deeds, good deeds, bad deeds. That's I'm just within this cocoon of my reflection. And I want to get away from all of that. That is only possible that if I am dealing with the bimba, not with the pratibimba. Dealing with the pratibimba means the main thing in dealing with the bimba is, bimba means the Ishvara here, is to have a feeling that I am understanding that you are the real thing, and therefore I as you is the real thing, and I'm dealing with unreal things. I'm dealing with reflections only. And what does that mean? That means, may you remove the veil that is blocking me from understanding the bimba and the pratibimba. Make me clear about the reflection and the non-reflection, the small self and the higher self. I am the higher self. There's only one bimba. And it is not being selfish or anything like that. It is in fact offering yourself to be the Jivatma dissolves and only let the Paramatma take over. That is the right action to be done. Which means is that I am tired of asking for trivial things. Make my health better, make my daughter get married in the time, all those kinds of things. Tired of that. This is going to go on forever. I want total freedom from everything. And so all you should do is to remove this veil of ignorance that prevents me from doing stupid things like putting bindi on the mirror. It's just like exactly, supposing there are a couple of children that are putting bindi on the mirrors by having this trick, and their mother comes on and says, "What are you doing?" They say, "We're having fun." "Don't do this, you're spoiling the mirror. Are you cleaning it?" They say, "Well, that's for you to do. We're just playing." Stupidity. And so finally the waking up process means you deal with the bimba, not with the pratibimba. Stop doing actions that have a limited value just for your own self. And we don't. So we go to a temple and we pray and we do all of these kinds of things so that we have a better life. And to a certain extent, that temporary respite is okay. But even there, the best form of puja, the best way of asking for Ishvara when you go to a temple, you can do anything you want to, it's up to you. But if you want to do that on the basis of just your own personal gains, then that's really not, that's just like putting bindi on the mirror. Put the bindi on yourself. And the way to put the bindi on yourself is to recognize that there is somebody whose reflection I'm seeing. Is to say to yourself that I am the appearance of Ishvara in this body, in this mind, in this reflecting surface. And I want to understand that all reflections are nothing but the non-reflecting person. I mean, not non-reflecting, but the bimba. This is the real gain. This is the real quest. This is the real game I should play. So what it means in a summary is that my attitudes, my actions, my sense of punya papa, all that, you just ignore that from the standpoint of the reflecting surface. And you put your attention on understanding who is the Atma. What is the glory of the Atma? What is the amazing things of the Atma? And ask, if you have to ask for some help from the Ishvara, ultimately it means, why is it that I don't see you? Why is it that I don't see the truth about this? Then you'll get the right help. It's kind of like saying, where do I need to put the bindi? This happens to me when I'm doing puja in the morning. At least I do that on Saturdays for sure. Then I put the ashes on my forehead. It's funny, I can never find the center of my forehead. So sometimes it's on this side, sometimes. This is a funny thing I have to think about. I should start with the nose and go up like this. But I don't have a mirror. So I just put it in the wrong spot. And then when I do go to the mirror later on to come to the class, then I have to put it to the right place. So it is possible that you may need the mirror to look at yourself. That's okay. But the action should be done on you, not on the mirror. What it means in summary is the actions to do on yourself is the actions involved with something which is really you, non-changing you, the same you that was there when you were a child, the same you that is there now, and the same you that will be there forever. Don't you want to deal with that person? Why do you want to just be occupied on your reflection, which is continuously changing, which is growing, and will soon be destroyed, ever to come up again? This is all we are dealing with, reflections. All the time, never really understanding the amazing beauty of the non-changing Atma. And so this fact has to be recognized. And what is keeping you from this wisdom is just not knowing what the truth about it is. That's it. This is exactly what the second line of the verse 15 is saying. So let's review the 15th verse in view of all of this explanation. So, na adatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu. So here, if you just pause on the first line, what it means is that if you put the bindi on the mirror, you have not put the bindi on yourself. Not yourself. There's been no papam, no sukritam, no punyam, nothing. You're just doing it on this is just make-believe, childish stuff. But why is it that I do that? Ajnanena avritam jnanam. That you do not understand that your reflection is not you. It looks like you. Somehow, that's difficult for us to see how we can. And I think that there is a fact that the young child is confused about the reflection. Animals are confused about the reflection. It is often said that if you bring a dog in front of a mirror, maybe they get used to it, living in a home. But the first time the dog becomes like more than a baby, and you put him in front of a mirror, he starts barking as though it's another dog. And our Swami Maheshanji was giving this example. He says that the young kids sometimes they will say to their mothers, "Yeah, I'm calling the other child and he's not coming to play with me." So there's some confusion. It's possible, that kind of a confusion. And this is exactly what our situation is. Exactly what our situation is. That we are taking the reflection to be ourselves. We don't understand that we are different from the reflection. And the fact that it looks like me is close enough for me to be completely bamboozled by the whole thing. Brahma. That's what it is said. Ajnanena avritam jnanam. Tena muhyanti jantavaha. By this, the people are completely confused. They keep their transactions, their deliberations, their preoccupation on reflecting surfaces. And really, in that sense, this is really a truth of the matter is that when you are inebriated, when you have some drinks, your mind is not functioning well and you can do crazy stuff. And so they say that Maya is like the most potent alcohol you can think of. You're drunk by it, you're not thinking straight. It's possible. So, exactly the same situation is. And in fact, when you look at other people, they are also nothing but yourself alone. And you're focusing on their personalities rather than the person. You don't understand yourself as a person, therefore you don't understand others as a person. You're only dealing with personalities. Your behavior, your sense of comradeship, your friendship, lack thereof, is all to do with reflections. And once you see that your Atma is the same as the other Atma, then the way you transact with people, the way you deal with them, the way you deal with your own life will completely change. Why? Because another person is also nothing but a reflection of Ishvara in a different reflecting media. That's all. So, really speaking, we are only dealing with the other waves in the ocean, not in the common water. So this is what he's saying. He says, na adatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. So now, this is articulating the problem, how it happens, how our actions in life are useless, the uselessness of our actions. All of this is talked about in this verse. The next verse gives the solution. So articulating the problem is the most important part of the solution. Just the problem itself gives the solution, isn't it? Because a problem well defined is a great way for the solution. It's almost the solution just has to be articulated, but otherwise just seeing the defects of our attitudes and so on, that's enough. So anyway, just go to the next verse now, number 16, and we'll end with that. Jnanena tu ajnanam, jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati tatparam. So tu here is the however. So it crosses over from the problem to the solution. However, jnanam prakashayati, knowledge illuminates that param, that supreme atma, adityavat, aditya means the sun, like the sun, tesham, for those, yesham, whose tat ajnanam atmanaha, the ignorance of the atma is destroyed by knowledge. Now these are the words that are used. Now let's look at the sense of what this means. Okay. So here it shows that ultimately what we have to do is that we have to remove the ignorance that prevents me from distinguishing the bimba from the pratibimba. That's all that I need to do. No amount of actions will help in this matter, because I'm tied up with actions. All I can think of in my life is what to do next. So my life is totally preoccupied by one form of action or the other. I don't know what knowledge has anything to do with this. How will that help? When the fact of the matter is just the opposite. You cannot expect actions to help you on something that has to do with light and darkness. So, for example, Swami Paramarthananda has given this example. He says, supposing you have physics ignorance of what physics is, and someone says, okay, you want to remove physics ignorance? Then do this. Do 1 hour walk in the college where this physics building is. Go around it 4 or 5 times. And then another one says, no, you know what you need to do? You have to do puja to the physics professor. Go to his office and do some ashtotra and chant some verses and so on and so forth. Do that. It was interesting. That reminded me. So when I came from India, I was in electrical engineering in my college. And so one of the books that we used to have, which was a really very beautiful book, very clear in our, is, I forget the title of the book, but the author was Dr. Terman, one Dr. Terman. And I had heard of that in India, a long time ago. So when I came to the US, I happened to go to Berkeley for my master's degree. And I knew that Dr. Terman was a professor at Stanford. And so one day I told my friend, I said, I would like to go and do pranams to Dr. Terman, I've been reading his books for so long, but I never realized that I could actually see him. He says, yeah, let's take it. So he had a car, I didn't have a car. And so we both drove to Stanford. And in those days, you didn't have any cell phones or, internet or anything like that. So you just showed up, hoping that he'll be there. So we drove all the way like 50 miles from Berkeley to Palo Alto. And we looked around to find out where the electrical engineering department is. Then we parked there and we went in. He says, where's the office for Dr. Terman? He says, oh, it's right over there. Luckily, he was there. Just our luck. And he was busy talking to someone or reading something or something. We just waited outside. Then we knocked on the door, walked in, and he was saying, yes, can I help you? So I said, Dr. Terman, my name is Vijay Kapoor. I'm a student from Berkeley, and I just came. I've been studying your books for 6-7 years. I just wanted to shake your hands. And so he was very pleased, very, very nice. And I shook his hand, and that was so wonderful. Just, he was, I didn't have a camera with me, but just to be able to touch him, he was a great teacher of electrical engineering. So he's saying that now suppose you want to learn electrical engineering. If you just go to Dr. Turman's office and do his puja and shake his hands, are you going to learn anything about it? No, I cannot do that. And so, everything in my life is really just karma. Walking around the physics office, doing puja to the professor, and so on and so forth. What you have to do is to learn the basics of physics. This is what it is. And so similarly, for example, supposing you want to see something in the darkness, you cannot do anything about creating life. Then finally the sun comes up. And you may have certain flashlights and so on and so forth, some small things you can do. But as soon as the sun comes, everything becomes visible. The whole thing becomes apparent, what is what, etc. So he says the only way you need to do is to study what is the difference between Bimba and Pratibimba. And Swami Paramarthananda does it very best. He says it is not just studying a book once and so on. You have to be persistent as a student and learn the basics of what is going wrong. Why can't I tell the difference? And ask questions, debate in your mind, do meditations, persist with it. These things do not come all of a sudden. But then if you do that, then your own understanding will become your own teacher. I see this happening with me. So I was discussing that with Swami Viditatmananda last year, that there was a time when I was looking for books to read, do this, do that, or the other, who's right, who's wrong, what about this? Those days are gone. Now my own understanding is my teacher. I have enough shraddha towards what is going on. And yes, I'm not there yet, but I'm on my way. And I'm self-reliant in terms of finding the shades of subtlety between, Bimba and Pratibimba, becoming clearer. Such a beautiful thing, really speaking. And the whole attitude in your life changes. You accept things as they are. You see the presence of Ishvara. And you see the presence of the fact that the Ishvara is nothing but you. And you rely on yourself. And most importantly, as we were doing in the earlier class, you're not that gung-ho about depending on other things. Doesn't matter, whatever happens, happens. You are what you are. And you are very beautiful. Ishvara is very beautiful. So this is Jnanam. Jnanam is not just a simple thing, somebody just do a mantra and then you read it or anything like that. Even physics cannot be, it requires a lot of preparation for you to really become knowledgeable about physics. So what to know about Atma, which is much more subtle than physics? And you have nothing but yourself to really rely on. So start with that whole process. So this is what is talked about. So jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanah tesham adityavat jnanam prakashayati yat tatparam. So this is just like the Surya, the sun, makes it all very visible. Similarly, once you understand the very basic principles of it, then the whole life becomes easy for you to analyze, to see what's happening. You can see where your mistakes are, where others' mistakes are. What do you have to do? All of that becomes very clear. So that's the only solution. And the end point of that is that I refuse to go beyond reflections. I am just dealing with copies of myself, and my whole sense of who I am is nothing but a copy of who I am. And I need to really focus in on the reality of myself and distinguish it carefully between what looks like me and what is me. This is the jnanam. Once that happens, your job is done. Your job, which has been taken many lives, hundreds of lives, finally comes to an end. You accomplish the ultimate goal of life. So this is the treatment of the jnanam that the 5th chapter is now going through. And so with that, I'll close off this class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Nityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadai Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Namah Hari Om. Yeah, Rani?
So, I really liked the class and I understood, but I have a question in my mind.
Yeah.
So, here in chapter, the verse 14 says that neither papa nor punya attached to atma, right? That it doesn't.
That's 15.
15, yeah, says it doesn't take them. Right?
Correct.
Yet, we always also hear and study that your karmas and your papam and punyas go with you from life. You are sometimes what phalam you're getting could be from karmas of previous lives, so that's
Correct.
those are papams or punyas, right?
Yes.
So how do you reconcile these two?
So, if you so here's the thing that we should see. There is a thing called the jiva. So the jiva is what the Westerners in here are called soul.
Mm-hmm.
So in our view, in the Vedantic view, this jiva, the soul, is the sukshma sharira. So there is a person who is going from life to life, maintaining the subtle body. Subtle body means your mind, your thinking, your quest.
Like your sanskar.
Your samskaras are all part. Samskara is, of course, samskara is a technical word which means leftover results of the previous one. Okay? But what I'm saying is that there is so stick with this definition. So the soul or the jiva continues on from life to life. There's that person is the same. So you and I, for example, we have a certain soul, we have a certain personality. That personality is inherent from life to life. And in each life, we maintain a certain physical body to express ourselves. but the person remains the same. That person is also false. That person who is maintaining from life to life is also false. But it is there. It is there. So the punya, papa and samskaras just hang on to that person. Okay? And that person eventually understands that I am none other than the Atma. So the soul is also a pratibimba. Everything is a pratibimba. And there's only one bimba, which is the Atma. And the moment you understand that you are not the pratibimba, you are the bimba, you're done. Then that person's account is removed from Chitragupta's bank accounts. Until then, it is all maintained. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So the Jivatma is the same thing as soul then?
So if you want to define it in that way, so everything is Atma. Everything is Atma. Okay? So you define how you do that. So when you say Jivatma, so basically the Jivatma is the same as Paramatma because there's only one Atma, there's only one Bimba, right? But the Jivatma is the manifestation of the Atma in the form of a Jiva. And yes, that has two forms to it. One is what is manifested in this life, which is Sukshma Sharira, Sthula Sharira, Karana Sharira, or the one that continues on, which is Sukshma Sharira. Sthula Sharira is given up, and then you are looking for another Sthula Sharira to express yourself, so you pick up another gross body. Then you become another manifestation of the same Jivatma. So yeah, you can say that soul is nothing but the Jivatma. And the very essence of the soul is Atma, which is Paramatma.
So Jivatma with Maya is the current life?
Yes, so yes, I think that would be a way to do that, yes, is that your sense of ignorance, my sense of ignorance, which is a result of Maya, means that you are taking your personality to be yourself. It is like acting in a play where you're not able to distinguish between the play and the actor. And the role that you are playing, you take that to be yourself. So that's kind of like a play of Maya, if you may. Yeah, so in that sense, the Jivatma is the expression of the Maya in this life, yes.
So just as a note, confusion for me comes from our repeated explanations into a spiritual life and a current material life.
Material life.
So when you switch back and forth, then have trouble locating which is what.
No, the fact of the matter is there is no material life. Everything is spiritual life. There's only one life. And our taking it to be material life is the falsehood. So the real thing is that it is nothing but everything is spiritual only, but we compartmentalize it by as though the spirituality is wonderful and the material is not. In fact, the materialism also is nothing but an expression of spirituality in a ignorant manner. Yeah. So in fact, I think we have to look at, and so one way to look at that is that there is Ishvara's presence even in the material life. It's not as though I'm sorry I'm dealing with these people over here, but the real stuff is over. It's not like that. It's all one will wax. Yeah.
I'm very confused today. I don't know, maybe because the last two lectures I was not there, but I'm very confused because I'm trying to see it from different perspectives. I understand the perspectives that an actor goes into a play, he's playing a role, and when he's playing the role so intently that he becomes the role, and everything that he's suffering, he thinks that he's the one that is suffering,
Right.
and therefore, but that is the ignorance. And when that ignorance, that realization that I am just the actor who's playing this role, then I am just an actor, so he comes back to the original self.
Right.
So in that dimension, I can understand it.
Okay.
But the Pratibimba just takes a canon to this whole thing. For me, why I believe is then it says that Ishvara is the only one, there is no doer and no enjoyer. All of the bimbas are there. Now who is the doer and who is the sufferer, and why is the Bindu, the Paramatma himself getting into the portion of suffering or doing?
Yeah. So no, I can understand that these are.
So
we have
that
to
is where
really-
I'm confused.
Yeah, I can understand that. So the suffering and so on itself is Mayika. There's no real there's no real suffering. So Ishvara also doesn't suffer, and the Jiva thinks that there is suffering. Okay?
What is real? So can you define that?
Real means that the suffering is transitional.
Okay.
It's transitional. Once it is done, then even, for example, our own transactional suffering, you get well. Supposing you are sick or something like this, you suffer and so on. But if you were to understand through the knowledge, so we'll continue on this. I'll remember your questions and I'll keep it in mind for the next classes and so on and so forth. But in terms of the understanding, the suffering disappears forever. So in the case of the Mayika, the Maya prompted suffering, like for example, supposing you and I have a cold, and we go through the virus and so on and so forth, then we get okay. But that doesn't mean that it won't come back, because another year, 6 months again, it will come back. But in the case of moksha, once the suffering, so look at it this way. This is interesting. Supposing you have a medical problem. The medical problem attacks your body and possibly your mind, which is not you. You see? So that is not you. It is something which is outside of you, which seems to be connected with you. Okay? But it will leave. So once your cold is gone, you yourself were already there. The cold came to you and then went away. You see? So it's not as though it took a part of you away or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is that because of the samskaras and so on, it is possible that it may come back again, because you are still yourself looking at a jiva. Whereas, in fact, it is never you. It is never you. And once you understand that, then even relative suffering will not occur. It will be just total cessation of everything. Anyway, I quite understand. We're looking at it from various angles, and I'm trying to portray different angles into one. I'll remember your sense of understanding, and we will deal with it as we go forward. Okay.
Thank you. I'm back.
I know you weren't there for
Yeah, I was going on the tour, so good question. Who gets moksha? So
yeah.
that is similar in the sense of this previous question, but
Yeah, no, I understand that. So, gets moksha means that there is something in appearance of something new.
correct.
Okay? So in that sense, you might say, if you look at the analogy of an ocean and various waves in the ocean, then there is in fact a feeling, if you look at it from the standpoint of a wave of the ocean, the wave has a certain idea that I am suffering because I'm so small and I'm about to disappear. And so there is a possibility that, so supposing there is consciousness in the ocean water, right? Now that consciousness appears to a wave in a form that I am just a wave, which is suffering. Okay? So, and I want to obtain moksha. So now the question is, who gets moksha? It is a sense of this jiva in the form of a wave that gets moksha. It gets moksha not as something brand new, but as the fact is that he was already free as the whole ocean. There is no difference between the wave and the ocean fundamentally. He thought it was he was away from it.
So you woke up.
So he woke up to the fact that really, so the moksha means it's already obtained but not understood, that's all.
Oh, one
Yeah, sure.
The other one was, so in Bhagavad Gita, in the earliest chapter,